Chapter 7 Stowaway Thor. One evening, Molly brought her turtles in and put them on the floor. I'm having a turtle race, she told everyone. I'll start in 5 minutes, so you better come watch. When Molly invited the family to a turtle race, Dad grinned at Mom. Mom rolled her eyes toward the ceiling, but the family went into the living room and sat on the couch. Todd sat in the rocker with Thor draped on his shoulder. Molly put the turtles on the carpet, side by side. Gentlemen, Todd said in the tone of an announcer, you may start your engines. Todd, Molly scolded, you stop that. This is my race. She put up a hand behind each turtle and gave them a little push. One turtle didn't move, but the other took several lumbering steps forward. What are your turtles' names, Sugar? Dad asked. The one who's racing is Pokey, she said. The other one is Splash. Good names, Todd said. Pokey's going to win. Thor's head jerked up, and his clear blue eyes opened wide as Pokey oozed across the carpet. Then he tumbled from Todd's shoulder and pounced on the turtle. Before anyone could stop him, he lay on his back with the turtle balanced between his paws. He tossed the turtle and batted it with each paw before Molly took it from him. Bad, bad kitty, she said, shaking her finger at Thor's sooty nose. When you're through playing with your turtles, be sure to wash them with soap and water, Mom said. Molly made a face. My pets aren't fun at all, she whined. Todd doesn't have to wash after he plays with Thor. He should, Dad said, but sometimes turtles carry salmonella. If you get that disease, it's like having the flu really bad or worse. That's why we wash with soap every time we touch them. Hey, if the race is over, let's go see how the garden's doing. Everything should be up now. The radishes might even be ready to eat. The family went outside, Thor riding on Todd's shoulder as usual. Todd checked on the catnip first and couldn't believe that the solid patch of grassy green. He put Thor down in the middle of the patch, but the cat looked at it with distaste. He held up one paw and leapt to bare ground. Mom, Todd called, I planted some catnip for Thor, and he doesn't like it anymore. Mom hurried over and looked at the grassy green patch. That's not catnip, Todd, that's corn. Wonder how so much corn got planted in one spot. All at once, Todd knew how it happened. The corn he had buried had grown. He hadn't thought about that happening. And where was the catnip? Dad arrived on the scene. I wondered why we got 3 fewer rows of corn than last year, he said. He raised his eyebrows at Todd. Todd didn't want to tell that he had buried the corn, but he had a feeling Dad already knew. How could he know? Wonder how I know? Dad asked. I remember doing the same thing with beans, only I gave the beans a big toss. Gramp had to stick long bean stakes up all over the garden to support the beanstalks. That year I picked beans here and there, but at least we had beans. Corn is a different matter. It is so close together that it can't live. We may as well pull it out so your catnip can grow. Otherwise, we won't have anything. Todd felt pretty strange, pulling up the corn he had tried to lose. Dad could have gotten really mad about the whole thing. Todd decided he had a pretty good dad. Maybe he could make up for it by taking extra special care of the garden. Finally, school dismissed for the summer, and the family prepared for a weekend camping trip. Dad hooked the camp trailer up to the pickup, and they loaded it with food and clothes. Every time Todd carried groceries to the trailer, Thor jumped inside. He always raced up onto the big queen bed. He laid there until Todd hauled him outside. Every time Todd brought something more to the trailer, it happened again. Todd started wondering what they were going to do with Thor while they camped. That night, he asked, "He'll be all right while we're gone," Mom said. "We'll leave him in the basement with lots of food and water." "Yeah," Molly chimed in. "I have to leave Splash and Pokey, too." Todd didn't feel right about leaving Thor at home, so he prayed about it that night, asking his Heavenly Father to help him be able to take Thor along. About noon the next day, they started off to a little lake high in the mountains, and Todd hadn't been able to convince Mom and Dad to bring Thor. After about an hour, Molly fell asleep, so Todd sat quietly, wondering why his prayer to bring Thor hadn't been answered. "Here we are," Dad finally said, turning into a campground. They chose a campsite. Then Dad backed the trailer in and unhooked it. While he hooked up hoses and cords, Mom asked for the keys so she could get into the trailer and start supper. Dad handed her the key, which she inserted into the lock and turned. The door popped open and Thor dashed between her feet, tearing off through the trees. "Help!" she cried. "Thor just ran off." "Oh no," Dad said. "He's so spooked we'll never catch him." Todd dropped the piece of wood he'd been wedging under the trailer wheels and tore off after Thor. "Come back here, you turkey," he yelled, puffing and running as fast as he could. The faster he ran, the faster Thor ran. After running several minutes, Todd sank to the ground to rest. Peering ahead, he discovered Thor resting too. He tried to get his legs under him, but they felt exactly like pieces of string. Finally, he gave up and settled on the ground. In a minute, he would be able to go again. Todd stretched out in the shade, put an arm under his head for a pillow, and shut his eyes for just a second. A moment later, he felt something sniffing at his fingers. He stiffened. What could it be? He realized that out here in the woods, it could be anything. Afraid to move, almost afraid to open his eyes, he peeked through his lashes. But he didn't see a wild animal. He saw Thor's head pushing against his fingers. Then the cat turned his attention to Todd's face, rubbing and chirping as though they had been apart for years. Todd jerked to a sitting position and pulled the cat onto his lap. If Thor had been scared, he had recovered, for he purred as loudly as he could, pumping his feet against Todd's leg. Suddenly, Todd remembered his family. He'd better get back and tell them his pet was safe. He scrambled to his feet. Thor crawled in his arms and trotted back to the trailer. "Thor's all right," he called. Dad stuck his head out. "Better get him in here quickly," he said. "We might not be able to catch him if he gets away again."